Selected 1. Someone is trembling in silence tonight. The kind of silence that screams. They finally see what they've done and who they lost in the process. For so long, they convinced themselves that you were the villain. They wore righteousness like armor, quoting faith while hiding deceit. But heaven saw it all. Their words were prayers only on the surface. Underneath, they were spells of control. Now the illusion has shattered. The divine connection they bragged about, gone. The line between their lips and heaven's ear has gone cold. And in that void, truth echoes. You were never the broken one. You were the light they tried to dim so they could shine by reflection. They traded gold for gravel. They mistook manipulation for love. And now karma is demanding full repayment. They think about you, about the life you could have built together, the children they once imagined, the home that never came to be. It haunts them because deep down, they know the truth. You were the gift they prayed for and then betrayed. Either you were longing for children, you desired a family, but something constantly got in the way, or you are now separated from a child. Family and unrealized futures are the sources of sadness. And since the foundation was based on false information, everything is collapsing. For this guy, secrets were everything. A whole life based on concealing the truth. However, secrets tend to decay from the inside out. Everything is now leaking out. Unclean laundry in plain sight. There are 1,000 bits of the broken mask. The character has fallen apart. Now, instead of seeing the character or the image, everyone sees the unvarnished, unpolished reality of the individual. Chaos, bewilderment, a sense of being lost, and a sense of invisibility, even when someone is directly gazing at you, are all now present in that mind. Nothing can fill the emptiness within. It keeps running away from the emotions, the reality, and any hint of accountability. However, the truth has the stamina of a marathon. It permeates every space, every discussion, and every quiet time. And you're always on my mind. What was lost, and what cannot be retrieved. The pattern becomes evident at this point. Avoiding issues rather than resolving them. Causing mayhem wherever they arise. All relationships come to an end in the same manner. Different victim, same damage. And this individual is what unites all disasters. The constant variable, the toxins found in all wells. This isn't accountability, it's knowledge dawning. Don't mix the two together. There isn't full accountability, not even close. However, the realization is slipping in like chilly morning light. The story's antagonist is revealed. And that knowledge is appending everything that was previously held by someone who has lived their whole life portraying the victim. Allow me to explain this phony relationship. It was thought that you were being tricked. The threads of the puppet master were being plucked. The idiot was always obvious to everyone else, but that control was maintained. Everyone else could see the clown's joke, and now it's striking like a freight train. Right? Men, to feel the peace of the angels and show your support with a super thank you up to $20. An actual item was destroyed. Something uncommon. Something that will be looked for and never found for the rest of one's life. The way of thinking is inflexible. White and black. Right or wrong. Win or lose. No compromise, no nuance. It's all war. You have to lose if you win. You must be incorrect if you are correct. Everything positive that was touched was destroyed by that poisonous thinking. Even you. Nothing was felt when you were injured. No humiliation, no sorrow, no remorse. Walking about with pride, justification, and conviction that one is correct occurred. However, something changed. What was done to you is precisely what was done to the individual who was promoted and shown about as an improvement. Cause and effect are now being comprehended, and the karma that was sent out has returned with interest. What comes around is magnified. It doesn't simply come around. This individual lacks emotional maturity. It is impossible to sit with emotions. There is no processing of suffering. Naturally, taking responsibility does not occur. However, the universe teaches without asking permission. It's being pushed to grow up. One is forcing oneself to face oneself. And the procedure involves dissecting everything in detail. The spiritual link that was reached via you has completely disappeared. You're no longer reachable energetically. You cannot tap into your light. You can no longer rely on your energies as you once did. And in the absence of that source, people are drowning in their own darkness, feeling overtaken by emotions without the means to control them or the capacity to comprehend them. If there were ever any spiritual talents, they are totally blocked. Here's why. Denial. Emotions were suppressed. Accountability was rejected. The shadow was turned away. You separate yourself from the divine when you reject the truth. Universal law is that. And there is live evidence everywhere at the moment. Consider winter. After everything was stripped naked, spring, the thaw, and the reawaken arrived. This individual has been in the winter. Something profound was suppressed. Something important was rejected. The truth was shoved down so far. It cut off the source's connection. The whole shutdown took place. Additionally, as a result of sealing off, worry persisted, progress was rejected, and quiet was preserved. When yelling for assistance ought to have occurred, paths don't align, thus nothing lovely was meant to happen with you. Building a relationship with this individual was never intended to unleash your true potential. You were the exam, the lesson, and the challenge. Someone else was juggled with you. Games were played, posing as though there were alternatives and gaining recognition like awards. And now, the present individual is acting in the same manner. Individual medications are being sampled. It's also the bitterest thing I've ever eaten. Someone is scrolling through your social media accounts. They're asking your mutual pals about you. You may be driving by locations where you may be. The fixation is genuine. And the more others see how successful you are, the more guilt you feel because you are now realizing what you had, what you threw away, and what you can never find again. They're waking up in the middle of the night and saying your name. You're going to have joyful dreams without this individual. When the person you're with treats you the way you ought to be treated, and when you realize it's not a nightmare, you start to wake up in cold sweats. It's the truth, right? Amen. To feel the peace of the angels and show your support with a super thank you up to $20. You've moved on, and the present situation is one of being stranded. Now, the guilt is showing itself physically. Proper eating isn't taking place. At work, concentration is lacking. It is impossible to be present in the moment because you're always comparing yourself to what was with you. And this comparison is ruining everything since there is no comparison. What was there with you is genuine. What is now in place is a cheap knockoff, a flimsy replica, and a fake being marketed as genuine. During our time together, you made an effort to foster development, recognize harmful behaviors, and act out of pure love with no expectation of reciprocation. However, there was no preparation. As a result, rather of developing with you, it pulled you into a poisonous dynamic that was gradually killing you. Promote this video so that additional people who are selected like you may discover it, if its message resonates with you. You were never aggressive when you attempted to discuss conduct. You were providing a mirror, an opportunity to develop, and a chance to change. However, the reflection was so intense that the mirror broke. There was name-calling, being accused of being too sensitive, demanding, or excessive when, in reality, all you were requesting was fundamental human decency, respect, and consideration. It is heartbreaking to feel guilty about this. Every exchange in which you attempted to express your demands is being repeated. Every time you establish a barrier, and it is crossed. Now, everything is seen through the prism of loss and consequence, even if you just asked for something basic and were given the impression that you were asking for the world. This was emotional aggression, uncontrollable outbursts, constant defensiveness, being so walled off and shut down, being reluctant to show vulnerability, and now sitting with the knowledge that you were telling the truth. You claimed that the actions were harmful. You said that cruelty was occurring and that no one was paying attention, but now that people are thinking about it, it is. It's inevitable to reflect deeply and realize you were correct. Now, certain situations are being recalled. You were instructed to quit being theatrical after crying. That moment when you wanted help and it was about someone else. The moment you celebrated a victory and it was taken away. The moment when no one was around while you were going through a tough period. The guilt is overpowering everything, and everything is coming pouring back. It's all about mental wellness. Warning flags were disregarded. Feelings were suppressed. Help was denied. The work was rejected. And everything positive in life, including you, was destroyed by that unhealed version. People are increasingly exhibiting personal introspection. Someone at work treats you dismissively, and all of a sudden, you remember how you were treated. When someone abruptly cancels plans, you remember how many times it has occurred to you. When someone tells a falsehood, memories of the web of lies that were spun come flooding back. Mirror after mirror is being held up by the cosmos, making it impossible to avoid introspection. Right now, the overwhelming guilt is oppressive. The desired items have been torn away. Control has been lost. Loss of power. Custody may have been lost if children were involved. It could not be acceptable to be close to children. There's a lot of thought going on. There is an internal acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Accountability, however, will not be spoken out. Not quite yet. Not about your treatment. People are writing messages that are never sent. I'm typing my apologies and deleting them. They're practicing conversations in their minds. People are imagining scenarios in which they forgive, take this person back, and return to their previous state of affairs. However, since the energy change is palpable, a wall is struck even in imaginations. You can feel the door closing, locked, the key tossed away. Internally, however, the reality is well known. Power, trust, and goodwill were being abused, and you're the one who came to their aid. During the situation, you offered courage and assistance. You did what you did out of pure love. However, it quickly becomes toxic when you do it with someone who is in a very different emotional place, expecting you to bear everything, not just emotionally, but in every manner, occurred when I leaned on you. And it got to be too much when defensiveness and eruptions replaced gratitude. It devoured you until you understood that setting and maintaining appropriate limits was essential. They were survival, and total loss of control occurred when you established those limits. They recall the precise moment you changed. The instant you stopped battling for this individual, the instant your eyes became cold. It's recalled because that's when you realized you were pushing things too far and stopped caring about the tantrums. Ego, however, would not permit entry. Pushing harder was thus done in the hopes of regaining cooperation, serving as a support system, and becoming a servant again. You didn't break, however. You bowed, right? Amen, to feel the peace of the angels and show your support with a super thank you up to $20. Then you regained your strength and turned to go. The falsehoods about you were told after the breakup. Information was disseminated for private benefit. Falsification occurred. To make the conclusion seem better, private information was exposed. To portray you as the antagonist in order to play the victim. It becomes dark at this point. This is where it all comes together. This has to do with why kids aren't seen anymore. The falsehoods caught up with them. Manipulation backfired. The cosmos has had enough. Things were done that had a cascading impact. The connection continued to be harmful. After you had healed and moved on, harm persisted even if you weren't present. There were still attempts to harm you from a distance because it was intolerable to see you flourish without this person. Now that everyone who originally accepted the falsehoods has begun to question, see discrepancies, and see through the act, the guilt surrounding the smear campaign is eating everything alive. One by one, people are separating themselves from this person, not from you. The seclusion is intolerable, and the same individuals who were supposed to turn against you are suddenly seeing your true nature. Sitting by yourself, you realize that your own reputation was ruined in the process of trying to ruin yours. It was intended for you to lose your network of support, but the opposite really occurred. You were supposed to be alone yourself. Yet this individual is the one who sits in empty rooms wondering where everyone went. Let me explain what took happen. The first was love bombing, an old-fashioned energy vampire with ulterior intentions. The aim was trust. The idea was to become a source of food. Thus, demonstrating what was deemed desired was carried out. Not the true self, but a cleverly constructed identity, projection, or illusion. And the true person began to emerge by the time you were captivated and succumbed to that delusion. And even though it was never your duty, you felt compelled to remain, assist, save, and repair. People are now feeling guilty about the manipulation, on how well planned everything was. How did you study? How did you discover your triggers? How were your wounds found? To weaponize them, to use them against you, to keep you obedient, to keep you giving, to keep you meeting needs while yours were disregarded, not to assist you in healing them. Since ignorance isn't the problem, the guilt associated with this degree of deception is oppressive. Everyone knew exactly what was being done. You were used to the deliberate, calculated, and power maintenance tactics utilized in every gaslighting remark, deflection, and instance in which your worries were redirected. In the end, whatever picture suited the current agenda was conveyed. Furthermore, falsehoods were stated as the situation escalated and authorities were involved. Several individuals lied about anything concerning a kid, if there are any parents involved. Your character's lies were made up. Horrible tales were produced. There is a distinct sense of shame associated with these specific falsehoods. Crossing a line that cannot be uncrossed is acknowledged, which makes it heavier. The most grave charges were turned into weapons. Systems designed to safeguard the weak were turned into weapons to harm you. And ultimately those systems looked into it, and saw through it. You moved on once the relationship ended, however it did. There could have been a time of intense melancholy, a time of withdrawing and working on oneself, a time of feeling awful, but there was no reaching out, no playing games, no seeking of vengeance. You just recovered, went on, and became more real, more present, and more you than before. However, the reaction was very different. There was a game going on in that head. It was supposed to go back and forth. We wanted your response. They wanted to fight back or fight for this individual. And when you didn't, when you vanished into your healing and came out stronger, things escalated, and people went to more extreme and absurd measures to garner your attention, to compel you to answer, to drag you back in, to retrieve you for what? For departing? For seeking better, for deciding that peace is preferable than turmoil. What cannot be forgiven is that you thought highly of yourself enough to leave. I have to cut this transmission short for a second. Have you been selected? Show it. Watching videos regarding selected ones is simple. Putting yourself to the test is another matter. It signifies something if you're still here. Talk, however, is cheap. The really selected ones act. I created Destiny Engine for that reason. You may use the patterns it creates to rewire betrayal into transcendence, convert solitude into holy power, and turn their failure into your success. We are fighting the dark elites with their own weapons, reusing their declassified consciousness technology, which was designed to promote competition and scarcity in order to further divine justice. The best part is that you don't need to do anything at all. After you put on the headphones and hit play, you can see your adversaries choking on the rope that their own falsehoods made. Start your Destiny Engine for $1 now if you're finished eating and prepare to demonstrate your selection. Witness the acceleration of divine justice in your life by becoming a member of the Obsidian Inner Order Live checks. The description contains a link. That mind is replaying the breakup all the time. Your whole speech is being examined. Every emotion on your face, seeking for indicators that went overlooked, looking for occasions when the result may have been different. In actuality, however, nothing could have been done because you were emotionally gone by the time you departed. You had already acknowledged that the relationship was finished, mourned about it, and come to terms with leaving. The last to know was this individual. There was genuine jealousy of your accomplishments and success. You could start anything fresh and succeed right away since everything you touched turned to gold. Competition was observed rather than a sense of pride or celebration. This individual saw your victories as losses, and another person in that life shared that sentiment. Your light is threatening someone else who is unable to appreciate your offerings. This is significant. Keep this in mind. The situation will eventually improve because envy is seen as being little, unattractive, and a sign of one's own fears and shortcomings. The guilt associated with it is complex, but it was unavoidable. Failures were brought to light each time you achieved success. Stasis was highlighted each time you expanded. Darkness was placed in a stark perspective each time you shone. Dimming you was an effort. Passive-aggressive remarks on your accomplishments. We discovered ways that make you feel less confident. There were hints that you were becoming too ambitious, too self-centered, and too large for your boots, when it was actually only desired to remain little. Thus, it would be impossible to feel inferior in comparison. Right now, this individual could be attempting to get in touch with you. People said you weren't as good as you said you were. However, it was more than that. Information about your private times together was disclosed. Things that ought to have remained sacrosanct were discussed in depth with that other individual. Perhaps because you no longer want to exchange energy. Toward the end, about sleeping in different rooms, about gradually drifting away, about working different shifts and not seeing each other, and how the narrative was altered to fit your needs, making you the antagonist and this other the victim. When you violate someone's privacy, you feel guilty because you knew it was wrong at the time. They were meant to be special times. Even though it was acknowledged that betraying your trust further was wrong, it was done since this individual had a deep need for support. The choice had a significant need for validation. You had a great need for others to concur that you were the issue. The recipients didn't respond as anticipated. The amount of information made some people uneasy. Some wondered why people were sharing such personal details. Some began to question what kind of individual would infringe on their partner's privacy in such a way. And that interrogation sowed the seeds of character doubt. The fact that those chats did not portray this individual as the victim is now becoming apparent. It seems spiteful. The terms petty and cruel cannot be undone. Unspoken is impossible. Cannot change the perception of someone who uses closeness as a weapon. Whatever falsehood was spread about you fell apart. It was intended to halt you, trip you up, or destroy your possibilities, reputation, or career. It was done in collaboration with another person. Exhaustion was the outcome of working together with someone who was carrying twisted energy. Everyone is drained when they are near poisonous energy. Lies were told about how you changed and matured after leaving, and about how you weren't sad about how things ended. Someone here moved from hardly expressing oneself to being fully expressive and unrestricted in their speech, attire, and demeanor. This individual was suppressing complete freedom, and it's inevitable to see it now. Being portrayed as the antagonist is disliked, but it is necessary to recognize that it is accurate. It is happening to see you live the life that was thought to be out of your reach. It was impossible to do what was said, turning into the person that was predicted you would never be. Additionally, each accomplishment serves as a reminder of how inaccurate the appraisal was, the extent to which you were misjudged, how terribly your abilities without that weight were miscalculated. Instead, your career was lost when it was attacked. That is the justice of God. Karma in action is that. The cosmos said no to your effort to ruin your livelihood today and took the other one instead. Currently, defending is taking place out of sense of obligation, but also out of sense of shame due to the actions taken and the obvious message. I really want to give you a call. There's a desire to return. There is a desire for reconciliation. It's occurring to be in a scenario you detest and wanting to get back to you. Experiencing a spiritual awakening involves feeling as if you could have the secret to spirituality. Perhaps believing that's what's going on right now. This darkness, this karma, and this forced seclusion may believe they are waking, but they are not. There are repercussions. The difference is enormous. The need to reach out is being driven by guilt. Mentally, messages are being composed. People are practicing their apologies in front of mirrors. You're imagining situations when you have to forgive, where everything returns to normal when you take this guy back. However, when your alteration is recognized, a wall is struck even in imaginations. It's recognized that you've changed from someone who would put up with such conduct. There's a sense of guilt over certain instances. This time, the humiliation took place in front of friends. The moment you were made to feel inferior in front of others. The moment when you were sided against by someone else. The moment you forgot something that was significant to you. When anything else was consistently selected over you, you eventually stopped requesting anything. These events are all coming back to me. Each one is burdened with its own shame. Each one uncovered a new level of the awful treatment you received. Each one explains your departure in detail. That's precisely why you won't return. That's precisely why this door will always remain closed. However, the guilt extends beyond the actions done. It's about the things that were left undone. The lack of support, the lack of love, the lack of effort, the person who never became, the ways in which you fell short, the ways in which comfort was prioritized over development, the ways in which ego was prioritized over your relationship. All of these things occurred. I want to be really clear. This individual no longer deserves access to you, chosen one. An opportunity has already been had. It occurred that a strong, kind, and pure person stood there and decided to choose destruction. Selecting falsehoods, manipulation, and injury occurred. Ego was put ahead of connection. There was a decision to choose turmoil over peace. And now it's occurring while sitting on the made bed. Thorny, bleeding, and staring about, wondering how they got to this point. Deep down, however, we know precisely how. It's simply not going to happen to confess it aloud. In contrast, you are flourishing, developing, and becoming more of the person you were always destined to be. You already know your value, so you're not looking back, waiting for someone else to change, or hoping that your value will be recognized at last. In the crucible of that relationship, you discovered it. Walking away, you discovered it. In the quiet of your recovery, you discovered it. Your value is now recognized. The healed version of you, the powerful version, the one that understands precisely what is due and won't settle for less, will be given to someone else now that it's too late, that you're gone, and that someone else will gain from all the effort you put into yourself. There is access to your allegiance, your commitment, encouragement, enthusiasm, love, and handling it as if it were disposable all occurred as though it were limitless, as though you would always be there, regardless of how awful the conduct went. And now we're coming to terms with it, that such items weren't thrown away. They were invaluable. And in the pursuit of something worthless, something precious was discarded. Being aware that what formerly existed with you may never be found again makes the guilt around this insight existential. Realizing that something priceless was mishandled is taking place. Convincing oneself that it was an upgrade occurred after realizing that a diamond was exchanged for shattered glass. This individual was taken out of your life by the cosmos for a purpose other than punishing you. To safeguard you, create room for something better, and pave the way for the life you were really destined to lead with others who value and appreciate you and who replenish your energy rather than deplete it. You owe yourself safety, tranquility, and the will to never let anybody abuse you in such a manner again. The pledge that you will never again compromise your own needs in order to please others. The promise that you will never again overlook warning signs in the hopes that someone would change. It doesn't necessarily indicate that there has been a real shift. Even though this individual may feel bad today, realize that the treatment they experienced wasn't fair, be spiraling out of control, and finally see themselves clearly. Transformation is not awareness. Growth is not guilt. To feel regretful is not to be willing to change. Here's what you should know about the guilt that is being felt. It isn't pure. It's tainted with self-pity, bitterness that you've moved on, rage that you won't let go, and irritation that manipulative techniques are no longer effective. Change conduct is the result of genuine guilt. This leads to efforts at manipulation under the pretext of apologies. Those who change for the better don't merely feel horrible. It takes a lot of effort to figure out why that behavior occurred. Professional assistance is requested. Years of inward healing are committed to. Making apologies without anticipating retribution occurs. Demonstrating the existence of a difference by persistent activity over time. Not by words, not by assurances, not by coercion, but by long-term, genuine transformation. You wouldn't have to give them another opportunity or have to allow them back, and even if they accomplished all of that, even if they spent years in treatment and returned totally changed. Because sometimes people teach you that it's not meant to be for them to be in your tail for a long time. Sometimes individuals arrive to compel you to appreciate yourself, to awaken you, or to show you precisely what you don't want. The chapter ends when the lesson has been learned. You have only just begun your chapter. This individual has never met the version of you that you are entering. A strong, unmistakable, and unambiguous version. A version that is aware of its worth and refuses to compromise. A variation that draws what is rightfully due rather than making do with what is offered. A version that is so close to the source that you will never be deprived of your spiritual abilities again. You have an unshakable connection with the divine, independent of others. It is not a takeable item. You own it. Belonged to you before you were even born. Woven into your genetic makeup. That's why you're referred to as the chosen one. Because you were picked for something bigger than those who can't see your light, poisonous relationships, and energy vampires. To lift generational curses, you were selected. To mend ancestral scars. To elevate the frequency of those around you. To demonstrate to others what true strength looks like. And to be a live example of how you can endure hell and emerge stronger than before. That everything may be lost in order to create something greater. This individual is killing everything inside of you while observing you from a distance and seeing you succeed. Because the notion was that without this person, you would collapse. The notion was that you needed this individual. The notion was that your brightness somehow relied on its presence. You, however, displayed something different. You proved to them that you are more than simply the light. The whole sun is you. You're not dim for anybody, either. Therefore, keep in mind who you are when someone tries to get in touch with you, which will happen. Recall the journey you took to get here. Recall each and every tear you shed. You had trouble falling asleep every night. You wondered whether you would ever feel normal again. No one else can provide you with closure. No need to apologize. You don't need to own your mistakes or have your experience validated. The truth is already known to you. That's sufficient. Your power has already returned to you. That's all. The cosmos and that individual are the objects of the guilt. Dealing with the repercussions is a personal matter. The necessary healing is a personal one. You are no longer the instructor, the healer, or the savior. You are sovereign, free, and whole just the way you are. And something changes when you really get it and live according to that fact. Whether guilt is felt or not, you lose interest. Quit worrying whether others are thinking about you. You're too busy creating the life you are always intended to have with people who deserve to be in it and in places that respect your energy to be expecting that change will happen or that loss will be acknowledged. Making items that are consistent with your mission. The ultimate power move is that. Selected one. Not getting back to you. Not reprimanding. Avoiding making others feel as awful as you were made to feel. Your independence, prosperity, pleasure, progress, and tranquility are the ultimate powers. The evidence is the life you create without this individual. The evidence is in the way you recover from efforts to break you. So allow yourself to dwell in guilt. Allow the repercussions to spin out of control. Allow yourself to awaken to your own truth. And you continue to go ahead, rise, shine, and develop. Because those that are selected do it. We don't go in reverse. Cycles are not repeated by us. We shatter them. We are above them. They are left behind. You have to discover what you wouldn't put up with first, however. To become really clear about what you want, you had to go through what you didn't want. To become fireproof, you had to go through fire. In order to become the version of yourself that no one can ever destroy again, you had to survive this person. And you succeeded. You're present. You're breathing. You're getting better. You're developing. You're still upright. It's a miracle in and of itself. Your strength is shown by that alone. That in and of itself demonstrates that you are precisely who you were meant to be. Therefore, you will know what to do if and when reaching out occurs. You have a connection to the source, not because someone informed you. Something greater than your feelings is guiding you. The same cosmos that got you through all you've previously endured is protecting you. Furthermore, the universe hasn't taken you this far only to allow you to revert to what almost killed you. You have experienced freedom. Peace has been experienced by you. You've experienced what alignment feels like. What you have seen cannot be undone. Unknowing what you know is impossible. You can't change who you are. Your part is done. You've fulfilled your part. You've come to your senses. That cycle is now over. It's time to concentrate on yourself, your recovery, your development, your aspirations, your tranquility, your happiness, and your future. And allow yourself to feel what it's like when someone you've selected says no. When a selected one decides on themselves. When a selected person permanently leaves. When a selected individual shuts a door that will never be opened again. It's time to get your prize now. And the life you're going to lead is that prize. The purpose you're about to walk in, the pleasure you're going to feel, the calm you're about to know, and the love you are about to experience. Chosen one, this is just the beginning. Only the beginning.